Great Lakes Prepping here. I consider myself an avid practitioner of food preservation, including canning of all sorts. If you've watched much of this channel, you've likely seen some of my canning videos. And while I certainly know a thing or two about a thing or two, today I'm going to be talking with a bona fide canning and food preservation expert. Diane Devereaux, or as you may know her, the Canning Diva, is a nationally syndicated canning guru, published author, podcast host, and television personality. Diane is joining me for a chat about food preparedness, her numerous cookbooks, and of course, canning. Diane, thanks a lot for joining me today and talking with me about canning.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
There's surely a lot of crossover between your audience and my audience, the kind of people that are interested in food preservation and the kind of people that are interested in prepping and homesteading and that sort of thing. But for anyone that may not be familiar with you or your work, do you want to talk a little bit about your journey to becoming the Canning Diva and kind of how you look at food preservation and canning in general?
Yeah, absolutely. It pretty much started well over 10 years ago. We're going on 13 years now, but I had a career in disaster management, which I loved. And I think it was 2010 that was pretty much the year that, it was just one disaster after another. And so for me, I traveled all over, not just in the United States, but also in other countries. We had the unfortunate, horrible earthquake in Haiti at the start of the year. And gosh, I was there almost, well, it was just over 12 weeks. And then we had the BP oil spill. So I left Haiti and went down to Port Fourchon, Louisiana. And I spent almost 10 weeks there. And we had one in Michigan in the Kalamazoo Marshall area. That was the Enbridge oil spill. So it was just literally one right after another. And my role in disaster management was quite fun, very intense. I'm not going to lie. It was quite stressful, but a good stress. It kept me from my home, though, and it kept me from my family. And I started working stateside with the ambassador in Afghanistan because that was an unprecedented year of flooding. I believe it was August of 2010. And, at the time, my husband just looked at me and he's like, I can't have you gone anymore. This is becoming really hard. So we put our heads together to think of something that I could still help and support people, but that would keep me home. And obviously, when you do something you love, you don't feel like it's a job, right? You don't feel like it's, something you got to get up and dread doing. And so that is essentially how the Canning Diva was born. And so I took my time and tenure in disaster management. I took the skills that I learned growing up in northern Michigan, being on a hog farm, and we had a 2-acre garden, and we preserved everything for ourselves. I took the two worlds and passions and I blended them together to create the Canning Diva, and I've been going strong now for 11 years. So yeah, that's pretty much just a very short version of my very long time doing this. But I wanted to give back to people and teach them ways in which to be prepared, similar to what you do. I focus primarily on the food and the water aspect because those are the biggest essentials outside of shelter. And so, yeah, that's pretty much how it started.
Wow. So you literally had a profession in the kind of thing that I don't know, preppers probably talk about every day and think about every day. You were doing it for a living on a pretty large scale.
Yeah, thank you. It was very rewarding. Like I said, very stressful, but rewarding. Our goal working with, if we were stateside, it was FEMA. If we worked internationally, it was usually with the UN or the embassy that we may have in that particular country. And, our job was to erect base camps so that those that were displaced because of an unfortunate situation, flooding, earthquake, hurricane, oil spill. There's countless reasons, right? yeah, it was our job to shelter and feed them and do that for as many as possible. And then sometimes we just work to support the other efforts. So your non-government organizations, NGOs, sometimes your UN members, when there's a major disaster and things are destroyed, they themselves need shelter in order to continue their work. So it was quite I'm glad to say I was able to do that. It's pretty awesome. But
Yeah.
with young kids at home and a household and a family, and I needed to stop doing all those things on such a grand
Mm.
scale and bring it down to the individual homeowner, like the
Yeah.
household. And so when I teach primarily the food and water aspect, but I do talk about those disasters that are relative to the person, right? It could be a
Yeah.
job loss, it could be a death in the family, it could be a number of things that impact how we're able to just get through a period of time, whether that be several weeks or several months or a year. I mean, you and I both live in Michigan. We know how crazy the weather can get, and
Yeah.
our time to be prepared is going into winter usually, because it's one thing if we lose power in the summer, right? It's easier to get outside and whatnot. But when it's freezing cold out and everything's covered in ice and all of our electric goes down, you've got to be able to get through something like that as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I'm sure you've probably noticed the same thing. I certainly did in the wake of the kind of onset of the COVID pandemic in 2020, the massive surge in interest of uh, definitely prepping, but everything that comes with it too, between the sort of food shortages, not food shortages, but more like supply chain shortages and panic buying and everything else. People couldn't find the things that they needed or wanted, and maybe more than that, they feared, oh, how far that would go to where
Right.
am I not going to be able to get anything in another month? So I hadn't really ever seen anything like that before, just even at my local stores and stuff. And of course, the viral videos that go around of people losing their minds, but the hoarding and the
I still
uh,
understand the toilet paper thing, to be honest with you, but okay.
I mean, I guess you got to have it.
I mean, you need
But
it, but did you need 17 cases of it? I don't know. Did you? Maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe you have a large family. I don't.
I guess I think those folks are probably still working off of that original, Costco haul.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I was certainly in a good position to not have to try to even go to a grocery store. And it was an interesting exercise in kind of evaluating everything that I've got prepared just in my own home.
Mhm.
But comparing that with um, maybe the average person who probably has a couple days worth of food in their entire house, especially if they have a big family and there's just no, there's a lot of food you got to put somewhere. I don't know. Um, but it got a lot of people thinking about it.
Yes.
And I know this channel got quite a surge in viewership, as have other prepping and homesteading channels that I'm acquainted with. Is that the same that you observed?
Oh, absolutely. I had the fortunate endeavor of I had written my third book at that time, and it was Beginner's Guide to Canning, obviously not knowing there was a pandemic on the horizon. And that book launched in early 2020. So it was a very awesome thing to have out there at that crazy time. But you're right. I have gained so many new followers and interests because nobody wants to get put in that position again. I mean, they don't want to have to be so dependent on their local store anymore, because it was a wake up call. So in a very crazy time, it was also a blessing for people to go, I don't ever want to get caught like this again.
Yeah,
You know, I don't ever want to have to stand in line at a store and have my goods rationed to me because there's just not enough to go around. So, I I think it was also a wake up call for individuals to start their own small gardens.
Mm,
They individuals have been wanting to learn how to preserve food, whether that's canning, dehydrating, even just dry goods storage and cold storing. It really piqued a lot of interest. So I have been just very blessed to be able to give individuals the tools they need to do these things so that instead of going grocery shopping at the store, you go grocery shopping in your own pantry
mm-hmm.
and you have these things, on reserve. And I help
Yeah.
individuals too that, okay, maybe they don't have a big home. Maybe they don't have a basement, depending on where you live. We have to help individuals get creative on where to even store this stuff. So, there's a lot of attributes to being prepared and that self-sustainability. There's a lot of things that we have to, as educators, think about, because what might work for me might not work for you. And so we have to get creative and we have to help individuals, not get caught with their pants down again.
Yeah. Yeah. The modern system of sort of logistics that surrounds grocery stores and all manner of stores, getting their supply. It's a very advanced, high tech thing that's quite impressive, for the scale of people that it serves, but because it's so complex and relying on technology, and I think most people aren't familiar with the just-in-time logistics that all of these stores kind of follow these days. It's so complex that any little, wrench in the gears messes it all up with a ripple
Oh, for
effect for
sure.
quite some
And you
time.
and you can't shut everything down and then expect it to just start back up like that. Because
Yeah,
we've been shown it doesn't work that way.
right.
When you shut down everything and you send everyone home to, I guess you could say, what was supposed to be riding it out for a couple of weeks wound up being several months, then getting people back to work and then trying to pick up where we left off. I mean, I've been fortunate to also work in the appliance manufacturing like side of things, and I've worked for two well-known manufacturers, and I'm very blessed to have had that tenure because with appliances is also part of food preservation. So it's
Mhm.
it's quite fun to be able to be involved at a manufacturing level. But
Yeah.
when you close all of our ports and you send everyone home, and now we no longer have the transfer of goods and everything gets backed up.
Yeah.
I mean, God bless. We had semi truck drivers waiting in their cabs for days, sometimes a couple weeks, just to pick up a container because
Mhm.
that's how backlogged things were. And so, if we shut down, which okay, we're not gonna get into the whys and whatnot, but getting it back going again, look how long it took for us all as a consumer to rebound from that.
Mhm.
So I would implore everybody watching and listening to, try to at minimum have at least 3 months worth of your everyday consumables on hand,
Yeah.
and follow people like you and I so they can learn how to do that, because I get a lot of individuals going, well, that's great if you want to put things in a jar, but not everything can go in a jar.
Mhm.
Okay, you're right. Well, there's other food preservation techniques like eggs, right? Fresh eggs. You can water glass those
Mhm.
and they'll last in your pantry for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of cool things we can do to just, if all it is 3 months worth of food and water to just have on hand for your full family, whether it's yourself or your family. It'll be a blessing when, things hit the fan and or gasoline. What if we can't gain access to fuel and we can't drive?
Mhm.
You know,
Oh yeah.
you got to hunker down at home. So yeah, the food and the freshwater aspect is primarily where I've gravitated as the Canning Diva.
Mhm.
But with my background, I can speak to a lot of the other aspects that I'm sure you talk about often
Sure.
regarding, that preparedness and what you can do in your home to gain access to, heat or,
Mhm.
storage, fresh water, communication.
Oh, yeah.
things went down, so yeah. Yep, it's been a blessing and a really fun journey, and I'm not done yet.
Oh, no, I wouldn't expect so. So I know that you are a published author for a fact because I believe this is your latest book right here,
Yes. Uh-huh.
Canning Full Circle. But remind me, how many books do you have right now?
Well, this is my fourth published work, the Canning Full Circle. This is a revised and expanded edition to my very first work. So
Oh,
when I started the Canning Diva, it was primarily from an educational standpoint, but I chose to write my own book because even as an educator and a personal canner, I was struggling finding, recipes on how to cook with your home canned goods.
yeah.
There's all kinds of recipes out there to get it into a jar, but okay, what do you do with it once it's in a jar, right? So that's how Canning Full Circle was birthed. It primarily takes you from the garden to the jar to the table so that you're utilizing what you're putting up, because I think that's the biggest a hindrance to some individuals is it becomes a novelty idea. They want to make jam and salsa,
Mhm.
and then they go hog crazy, and now they have 40 quarts of salsa, and they're like, I'm never going to eat all that. What was I thinking? Well, you can cook
Yeah.
with it. Like, you can make meals using your salsa. And so I had so much fun writing that first book, and that was an independently published works. And I laugh all the time. I tell individuals that that was my most expensive resume ever, because what it did, and I didn't even realize it was going to happen, was it catapulted me to be then sought out by a publisher, and to actually then start writing for an entity and having it published. And that's been so much fun and so rewarding. And so, yeah, this is my fourth works. My fifth book will be out August of 2024, and that is Meals in a Jar. So right now, this Canning Full Circle launched July 4th, and this is perfect timing for those that are new to canning, or even if you're a veteran canner and you've been doing, canning, if you've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
You have recipes that are new that you haven't seen before in this book, and then I give you ways in which to create dinners, lunches, side dishes, desserts, even cocktails. So
Mm.
it's a lot of fun. It really is. It's a lot of fun.
That's great. That's what I found quite different about your book than all the other canning books that I've read, many of which are behind me. I do want to know about the individual things to can. Well, maybe I needed to know that more years ago. Now I think I've got that down pretty well. But what interests me from this point is the more complete compositions, a whole meal in a jar. You got your soups and chilies and things, but what else? I get real bored of eating the same thing, and it's probably why half of the videos on this channel are cooking videos because I'm always just cooking different stuff. So I like
You want
that.
something new, right? Yeah,
I
you don't
want
want to
something new,
eat the
and
same thing over and over again. Well, so I have broken it down into various chapters. So, what I try to provide for all of my readers and customers is ways in which to individually can, like, a variety of different vegetables or fruits, so that you can use those to create meals. But then I also give things like jambalaya,
mm,
3 different types of spaghetti sauce, corned beef hash. You can actually make your own corned beef hash and preserve it in a jar, so that way you have a really awesome breakfast. Sometimes I even eat it for dinner.
mhm,
But yes, soups and stews are also a big part of the book and a lot of my books. But the meals in the jar, there's just something to be said about having it already cooked. You just
mhm.
now need to heat it up on a stovetop, and maybe make a side dish if you want, and boom,
Yeah.
you have a complete meal. And that works out really well, because look how busy all of our lives are.
Hmm.
And it really becomes a pain to try and figure out, okay, what are we having for dinner tonight? And it helps take some of that prep and guesswork out of meal creation.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the premise of Canning Full Circle. So you'll see a variety of different things, like Mexican
Mhm.
pulled chicken, but I'll also give you recipes. So let's see. salsa verde, which is your
Hmm.
green sauce.
Yeah.
And then I teach you how to make a chicken pozole with it so
Hmm.
that way you have versatility. You can use it as a tapper or you can use it to create a meal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of fun, and then you'll start to learn once you get the foundation of canning down. You'll start to learn how to what I call off-road a little bit, and you
Hmm.
start venturing out into new things, new recipes, some of your own family favorites you can put into a jar. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun, and yeah, Canning Full Circle will be able to do that for you. And for those that may already know who I am and have already purchased that first independent works, I really incorporated like a lot of new recipes. More than half are new
Mm.
recipes, so that way you're getting some of the old favorites, but you're
Yeah.
getting a lot of new stuff too. A lot of new
Well,
stuff.
that's great.
Yeah. Thanks.
I know you also have a Canning University accessible via your website and a podcast. We talked about your next book coming out. Do you want to expand at all on the university or the podcast or anything else that's
Yeah,
next?
I'll do all three, yes, because I am also, forever evolving. I want to reach as many people as I can. And I understand limitations of being one person, right? So I can't be everywhere at once. And I've really gained a lot of interest internationally. I have a lot of followers and individuals, excuse me, my throat's getting dry, that, may not have access to everything that we have in the United States. So what I've done with the Canning University is I've given an online platform. It's learn at your own pace. Some of the courses are certified where I will actually quiz and test you. And based on how well you do, you can receive a certification saying, hey, I get this now. I know what I'm doing. So for
Yeah.
instance, the principles of pressure canning. That's one of my most popular classes at Canning University. And art of pickling. The next one will be all things tomatoes.
Mm.
I'll have a class on thickening agents that are safe for home canning and ways to use, food substitution. So I have a lot of things in store. But it's the only way I can really reach everybody and actually be in their home and teach.
Yeah.
So that has been a labor of love. It's been a long time coming. It's very labor intensive on my part, but I'm okay with that because I know everything I'm putting into it is going to really give the confidence to the new canner
Yeah.
and also reassure those that have already been preserving food, like, okay, I'm going to brush up on a few things. I'm going to, kind of reassure that I know what I'm doing. Or it could be that an individual's only water bath their entire, canning career.
Yeah.
And so now they want to jump into pressure canning, and it's something they've always been very nervous or afraid to do. I remove that fear by, well, empowering them through knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So that is new and forever growing. And then I've been asked by a lot of my customers that have been canning for a while how to go about starting their own business and doing very similar to what I started out doing, which would be holding events and having actual hands-on canning classes. So that'll be
Mm-hmm.
something I will launch next year as well,
Oh, wow.
to teach individuals how to make it a business for themselves. All the tips and tools and the do's and don'ts, things that I learned along the way, so that they can be successful and make it a side business for themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's upcoming. But my podcast, I'm expanding that as well. That's Canning with the Diva. So if you are a podcast subscriber and you love listening, Canning with the Diva has been around for some time now. I was on the Survival Mom radio network years ago, and that's how that started. And I've just spun it off into my own show. And I have some new subscriber content that'll be coming out at the end of this year. That'll be premium content, I should say. So that'll be,
Okay. Well,
yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what you mentioned the thing with the extra benefits and things for subscribers.
Mhm.
What platform is that you're talking about?
For my podcast, there's premium content you can subscribe through. I use Buzzsprout. They are my, I guess you could say, podcast source, if you will. But
Okay.
I am on everything. So whether it's
Oh, I
Pandora,
got you.
Spotify, your iPhone. I mean, you name it. I'm pretty much everywhere you tune into a podcast, you'll see
Okay.
Diva. But the premium content, I'm going to give those listeners that subscribe a deep dive into science and math. I'm going to be
Mm.
interviewing and talking with nutritionists, food scientists. I'm also going to have a fun comedic way to deal with the haters. So
Hmm.
I will have a series on there called Blanched,
Mm.
where we kind of call out and make fun of some of the ridiculousness that's circulating the internet. I reinforce it with some really good facts and knowledge. And, we have a little fun,
Yeah.
in the meantime, too. We're going to keep it raw and real and have a good laugh. But yeah, the premium content is going to be a lot of fun. And then, of course, I want to really start doing more and more giveaways. So
Mm.
whether are on my social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X now, but or just you subscribe to my newsletter on my website at
Yeah.
canningdiva.com. I really want everyone to get their hands on as much of the materials and the tools that I'm acquiring from
Hmm.
various canning suppliers so that, it
Oh,
just enhances their journey.
you
Yeah.
thinking like some pressure canners and that kind of thing?
Yes, I will
That'd
be
be
doing
great.
a pressure canner giveaway this winter. I've got obviously my publishers are willing to give away free copies of my books.
Hmm.
I have a canning utensil kit manufacturer,
Mm.
Panida, that I work with that is really awesome about doing fun giveaways and
Yeah,
away their products. So yeah, I've got a lot of cool things in store with that.
that's great.
Mhm.
People do love a giveaway.
Yes, they do.
I should probably do more of those. People might subscribe more. All right. Well, Diane, thanks again for talking with me today, and we should do it again sometime. And everyone, be sure to check out the video description below for links to the Canning Diva website and also links to podcast and the books and everything else. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sean, for having me on. This has been great.
thanks, Diane. I'll see you later.